Wherever you are in the world, welcome to another of my takes on China. And I couldn't be a commentator on China or anything Chinese unless I had a video about the election in Taiwan. So here it is. The results are in. And if we're honest, they weren't a surprise. Taiwan voters have given an unprecedented third presidential term to the DPP, but they've changed the governance of the island back to the KMT. Now, it's not hard to be unprecedented when democracy on the island is so new. Let's not forget that 1996 was the first election on the island ever held, and prior to 1987, the place was still under martial law. So being a first in democracy is not hard. This election gave us several precedents. The first time there were 3 parties in the running. The first time any party has held the presidency beyond 2 terms. And now is the first time the Legislative Yuan has had the minor party holding the balance of power. Most people in Taiwan, though, prefer the status quo. But there are 2 ways to look at what status quo means to Taiwan, in terms of where Taiwan sits in the One China policy and how Taiwan is governed locally. In the first description of status quo, the globally understood and preferred view means Taiwan retains its political independence. It remains part of China, but with a separate form of governance. And there's enough ambiguity there that everyone understands it's okay to differ on the understanding of how Taiwan is governed, but those differences won't make any changes to the situation in relation to China. But in the second, it's a little more complicated. Recently, and particularly as the US increases tensions and ratchets up its support for one party over the other, there's been a very different meaning of the concept of status quo. Even though the meaning of the phrase hasn't changed, the application of it is different. It means, according to an online definition, the existing state of affairs, especially regarding social or political issues. Well, the existing state of affairs in terms of how Taiwan is governed is actually a state of confusion. The political ambiguity that once existed is now no longer what it was. Joe Biden, as recently as this week, has said he does not support independence for Taiwan, but at the same time, he and his party have said they do support what Western media calls the independence-leaning DPP. So with a Western-leaning new president, Taiwan has what it always had: confusion and political ambiguity. In other words, as a result of this election, nothing's changed. The status quo remains what it was in both of its applications: the continued governance of the island and the island's status in relation to China. There's no evidence that I know of that the DPP or the new leader Lai will seek independence. There's no evidence that China will seek forced reunification either. Only Western media and politicians sometimes say these things. But to say that the DPP and its new leader, William Lai Ching-te, will lean towards the US is absolutely correct. One look at Lai's X account will demonstrate that. But at no time has he been heard to say he seeks independence. To do so would not only incur the wrath of Beijing, but about 1.3 billion Chinese people too. It would also incur the wrath of many of his own electorate, most of whom prefer the status quo. But not only will he not seek independence, he will be hard pushed to implement policies or strategies leading towards that goal, as he doesn't have the control to do it. And more about that later.